Okay, so today we're going to take a look at lesson 14. So we're going to be taking a look at applying our knowledge of fractions and decimals into some word problems. Okay, so first up here with number 1, we have barrel A contains 2 7/10 liters of water. Barrel B contains 3 9/100 liters of water. So together, how much water do the two barrels contain? So going back through into the problem, let's take a look at some of the important information. Okay, barrel A, 2 7/10 liters. Barrel B, 3 9/100 liters. And then we see the word together. So now when we go to set this up with our diagram, okay, we can go ahead and create our tape diagram here. We have two barrels, so we're going to create two sections. Okay, and we know barrel A is 2 7/10 liters. We know that barrel B contains 3 9/100 liters, and our question is asking us to combine the two barrels. Okay, so now taking a look at our equation, we see we are adding, so it looks like this. Okay, now a couple different ways that we could add this up. Okay, one way is to think about it like fractions: 2 7/10 plus 3 9/100. Okay, well then our 7/10 would become 70/100. Okay, now when we go to add straight across, we see that we have 5 79/100. Another way we could do this is to add up our decimals. So we could take 2 7/10, add that to our 3 9/100, which would look like that. Remember, the most important part when we're adding and subtracting decimals is to make sure those decimal points line up. Now we can go through and add them up, and we can see that we have 0 plus 9 in the hundredths place equals 9. 7/10 plus 0/10 is 7/10. Bring our decimal point down, and then 2 plus 3 gets us 5. So written as a decimal, it would look like this. Okay, you can see we end up with the same answer, just written differently. So now when we go to write our answer statement, okay, the two barrels contain 5 79/100 liters of water. Okay, so we have our diagram, we have our work, and we have our answer statement. Okay, moving on to number 2. We see Alyssa has run a distance of 15 8/10 kilometers 1 week and 17 34 kilometers the following week. How far did she run in the 2 weeks? Okay, so we have this much in 1 week and then this much in the following week. Okay, so this is similar to number 1, okay, where we are combining because we want to know the total for the 2 weeks. Okay, so the first week we have this much, and then second week. Okay, and again we're trying to find the total. Okay, so setting this up just like the problem before. Okay, we can write it as a decimal, and we can also write it as a fraction. So we're going to be solving this a couple different ways so that you can get in the practice of knowing what works best for you. Okay. Okay, good. So now when we go to add, okay, we know that 15 plus 17, okay, 5 plus 7 is 12, and then 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3, so we get 32 ones. Okay, now we add up our hundredths, okay, and we see that we have 80 plus 34. Okay, so we end up with 114 hundredths. Okay, well, we see that 114 hundredths is an improper fraction, so we can actually pull out 100 hundredths, 14 hundredths, and we end up with an answer of 33 and 14 hundredths. Okay, so that's how we would solve it with fractions. Now if we wanted to solve it just straight with decimals, we would line them up. Remember to keep the decimals in line. It's okay that our 8 and 4 are not lined up because they're in different places. Okay, that's an 8 tenths versus 4 hundredths. Most important part is to keep the decimals in line so that we're making sure that all the places are in the right spot. Okay, so now first up, 0 plus 4, then we have 8 plus 3, 1 plus 5 plus 7, and then 1 plus 1 plus 1. Okay, and you see we end up with 33 and 14 hundredths in decimal form. And then we can write our answer statement. Okay. So she ran 33 and 14 hundredths kilometers in the 2 weeks. Okay. And that's how we would solve that. So number 2 is very similar to number 1. Difference this time though is when we go to add up our fractions, we need to regroup and rename. Okay, and this 100 hundredths right here, if we compare it to the decimal way we solved it, is this 1 right here that we carried over into the ones place. Okay, so that right there is our 100 hundredths that we had over there. Okay, all right, moving on to number 3. Okay, an apple orchard sold 140 and 5 tenths kilograms of apples in the morning, and then 15 and 85 hundredths kilograms more in the afternoon than in the morning. How many total kilograms were sold that day? This one is a little bit different. Okay, notice the word more is important here. Okay. So now when we go to set up our tape diagram, we have morning and we have afternoon. Now morning we know 140 and 5 tenths kilograms. Now what's different here is the PM. Okay, in the PM they did not sell 15 and 85 hundredths kilograms. They sold that much more than in the afternoon. So now we have the same amount from in the morning, but then we have a little bit more from that, and that's where our 15 and 85 hundredths comes in. That's where that would go. Now going back to our question here, we want to know the total for the whole day. Okay. Now, as you see, we have actually 3 sections here, and these 2 are the same. So now when we go to add this up, we have 140 and 5 tenths from our morning. Then the afternoon bar also has 140 and 5 tenths. Okay, that part is the same. Okay, but we have a little bit more, so we have to add also the 15 and 85 hundredths kilograms. So now again, a couple different ways we can solve this. So we have 140 and 50 hundredths plus 140 and 50 hundredths plus 15 and 85 hundredths. Okay. Now by setting this up this way, we see a couple things. First, 50 hundredths and 50 hundredths is going to get us 1. Okay. So then we can look at 140 and 140 is going to get us 280. Okay, so now when we go to add this up, we have 281 plus 15 and 85 hundredths. Okay, and then to do a quick add over here of our ones, we end up with 296 and 85 hundredths as our final answer. Okay, and that's how to solve it in fraction form. Now to do it in decimal form, so you can again see both ways to do it. Okay, Make sure we line everything up in the right spot. Okay, notice our decimals are all in a straight line. Okay. So now taking a look at our hundredths place, remember we have these kind of two zeros in there because for our 5/10ths to become 50 hundredths. So 0 plus 5, 5 plus 5 plus 8. Okay. And so this one that we just carried over here is the one that we just added right over here. That's our 1, 1. Okay, so 1 plus 5, 4 plus 4 plus 1, and then 1 plus 1. So we still get 296 and 85 hundredths. Okay. So now our answer statement. That day, 296 and 85 hundredths kilograms of apples were sold that day. Okay, good. All right, last one here, number 4. We have a team of 3 ran a relay race. Okay. Now, the final runner's time was the fastest, measuring 29 and 2/10 seconds. The middle runner's time was 1 and 89 seconds slower than the final runner's. Starting runner's time was 9/10 seconds slower than the middle runner's. What was the team's total time for the race? What we need to be careful of with this one is time. Okay, when we measure with time, if something is fast, that means we get a smaller number because they're doing it in less time. So that's something to make sure we're understanding with our numbers here. So we have the final runner, okay, was 29 and 2/10 seconds. Okay, we have the middle runner. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because the middle runner ran slower, which means their time is going to be longer. Okay, and we would put that in there. Okay, and then our first runner, okay, we can see that going back into the problem, the starting runner's time was 9/10 seconds slower than the middle runner's. So I'm going to draw a bar for the middle runner and go a little bit past that. And so this much right here, okay, is 9/10 seconds faster. Now this is a multiple step word problem here. Okay, now we need to know the total time. Okay, so now taking a look at all of our sections on the bar here, notice that we have 29 and 2/10 for all 3 runners. Okay. Then we have 2 sections here of 1 and 89 hundredths, and then our final section of 9/10. Okay, so lots of adding to do with this one. So if we want to add these with decimal, we can actually line them all up by decimal, and it would look like this. Okay, a lot of numbers to add here. Okay, but keep those decimals in line and it should be pretty easy. So now we see we have 9 and 9, which gives us 18. Okay, 1 plus 2 is 3, 5, 7, 15, 23, 32. Bring down our decimal. Okay, and then we have 3, 12, 21, 30, 31, 32. And then 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. Okay, and there is our final time. Okay, so the total time was 92 and 28 hundredths seconds. Okay, we'll save ourselves a little bit of time with this problem and just do the decimal form. Okay, so go ahead and get started on the exit ticket. Thank you.